then I'm good.
I believe so, because there's 3 seats.
Okay. I was discussing that with Heather last time, and I couldn't remember what we decided.
You can only sign for whatever seats are available. So if there's 3, you do 3.
Did Mary mention to you that we found out that her and I are actually on the commission until 2026 versus 2025?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because the next election will be you, Mary, Grace, and
Brian.
Brian.
I think, yeah. We were both under the impression that whether or not it passed, it wouldn't apply to us.
I didn't think it would either.
But Heather pointed it out and everything. I was at an event and we were talking. She's like, and I mentioned like 2020. She's like, no, you're gonna be here a bit longer.
Here's the packet.
You just add another year onto your sentence.
Just because.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Do you know anyone else picked up packets that you're aware of?
Maureen, but I don't know if
Maureen.
anybody else.
Okay. I know Liz is planning on running again.
Yeah, because she picked up a packet yet?
I don't know when they're due. Picked up her packet.
It looks like it's a packet. Or,
Oh.
no. It's in Brian's.
Gotcha. Oh.
We're gonna have the state coming today, so that's exciting. Oh, did I mess it up? Oh, maybe there. No. Ah.
This is another domain that's never gonna work.
It's not gonna work?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope.
So get a flash drive upstairs.
Yep.
Okay.
So the reason I think about basically no. You can do so you can set up during the access to morning. You can do this the same SSID. That hotel should be
I work for the state, on the regional budget committees, so I'm just asking for goodies.
I get it.
Yes, good, I like the interview. I love working with you. Fantastic. And I have extras too.
They're perfected.
Aaron?
No, but I just see from my eye.
I call it erratic. Yes, I do that.
I thought I heard you were having to leave the country for. Did you do that?
To leave July 13th and I'll be back October 20th. Yeah, me and my little one. Take it with me.
The regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission, Monday, June 24th, 2024, at 7 p.m. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Mount Pleasant City Commission recognizes the Anishinaabe, whose ancestral lands the city stands upon today. We acknowledge the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe and recognize that the three bands of Ojibwe, Saginaw, Black River, and Swan Creek, have resided on this land for over 200 years. Our acknowledgement of the full history of the tribe and our commitment to be good stewards of these ancestral lands are an expression of gratitude and appreciation to those ancestors who came before us. We give thanks to the generous care with which the Anishinaabe and those members of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Michigan have given and continue to give to this land and our community. Clerk, please take the roll.
Commissioner Bush is absent. Commissioner Chapman?
Here.
Commissioner Eke is absent. Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Wingard?
Here.
Vice Mayor Alsager?
Here.
Mayor Perschbacher?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, since we have a quorum, we're going to continue on. We're going to move into proclamations and presentations. Our first presentation is on the 2023 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. The floor is yours.
All right, I'll jump in. Thank
Okay.
you. I'm hoping I can share my screen here. Just there we go. Just to have it up here, and I'll kind of page through a few pages. Thank you for having me and having me over Zoom so that we could take care of this week. We did meet with the audit committee last week and went over the financial statements in detail. So the intent tonight is just to give other commissioners an opportunity to ask questions and to go over just a few of the highlights. The statement was just finalized today, so this is the final product. So the statement is in several different sections here. It's an annual comprehensive financial report. So as such, it did receive the GFOA Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting last year, and we hope that it also meets the requirements for this year. It's a little bit later than usual this year. There was a big learning curve, both internally and on our part, because this is our first year doing the statement or putting it together for you. Previously, that was done by internal staff at the city. So the first section here is the introductory section. There's a management letter here, an introductory letter that kind of tells about the city in general, with some information, and then the financial section is where our audit report is. So on page 1, the opinion, it is an unmodified report. This year, it says, in our opinion, in the second paragraph, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the city. So that's an unmodified, clean opinion, and certainly what you want when you have an audit done. In addition to a regular financial statement audit, there was additional supplementary information here. You can see where I'm scrolling there, the kind of schedule of expenditures of federal awards. We did discover kind of late in the audit that there was a federal program. It was kind of hidden because there was some pass-through money as part of your water resources recovery project, but it was ARPA funds being passed through the state of Michigan, but the single audit requirements passed through as well. So we got that taken care of as well, and I'll get to the final results of the single audit is way at the end of the report here. Just a couple things to point out. On page 17, this is your full accrual basis financial statements. You can see here at the bottom, there's an unrestricted deficit. That is not unusual among many communities across the country, and that's partially due, mostly due in part, I should say, to recording this other post-employment benefits and the net pension liability, which is an additional liability to the city that was recorded several years ago now, but it's about 21 million in total of an additional liability. So that's what kind of drives this into a negative position. With the exception of that, it would be positive. Then just by way of the fund basis financial statements, this is more what you're accustomed to seeing on a regular basis throughout the year. This is the balance sheet showing the general fund and the major streets fund and the other non-major funds. The bottom line, or the unassigned fund balance here for the general fund, is 6.8 million at the end of the year. That's a very good level. It's about 46.9% of your operating budget for the year. So it's in good shape. About 6 months worth of operating expenditures is there. There is a minor unassigned deficit here, and that's in the storm sewer fund. So that's that one will be taken care of when prepaid is reversed next year. So it's nothing to be overly concerned about there. Just an accounting thing. And then I didn't intend to go through all of these pages. If there are other items that need attention or there's questions on, I'm happy to do that. We do have to report footnote 2 on page 37 to the state, and they will have questions if there's any that meet the criteria for that, and I believe this one does. So you'll have to file a plan with the state to get it corrected, but that's pretty routine, and I can provide a letter to Chris to use as a template for that. And then I was just going to jump right all the way down to the single audit. I was going to mention as we go here the pension plans. I know that's always kind of a question that the city has. On the way to the single audit here, the pensions, the regular MERS plan is funded about 66%. The Act 345 pensions funded at just under 82%. And then the OPEB plan for the Act 345 is funded at about 75%. So there's nothing unusual that will cause the state to have a problem with those. And then this is the single audit section. In addition to the regular audit, like I mentioned, we had to expand the scope. The single audit specifically requires that we report on internal control and compliance at the financial statement level and control and compliance at the specific federal program level. So this first report is at the overall financial statement level that we have to report. We did have to report a material weakness in that we had a lot of journal entries, so we're required to report it that way. And on the last page, I'll show that to you. And this is the uniform guidance or the major program testing results. And it says right here, in our opinion, the city complied in all material respects with the compliance requirements that we had to test for the federal program. So that's a good unmodified report there as well. And these are your 2 federal programs that we found. We did look for others, but didn't find any. And I should point out that this 1.6 million, that's the one that we tested, and that's just the very start of a $9 million grant program, which is accompanied with the $18 million bond program that is all being used to make upgrades to the water resource recovery plant and do some significant work there. And this is the material weakness, and it refers to the number of entries necessary to compile the year-end financial statements. So that is the report that I had. If there's anything else you would like me to cover, please let me know and I'll be happy to do so. Is there any questions?
Does the commission have any questions? I don't think we have any questions.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to the redevelopment ready communities recertification presentation.
Just going to take a moment here to pull the presentation.
Manuela, make sure that you're speaking into the mic.
Oh. All right, good evening, commissioners. I have here today the Michigan Economic Development Corporation redevelopment ready communities representative for our region. Blake Newman is the community planner representing this county and other counties within Region 5 of the MEDC. And she's going to be walking us through the redevelopment ready recertification process that we just completed in March of this year. The team here, city staff, went through a lot of work to create updated reports, including downtown development, economic development, public participation process, and web updates and so forth. So she's going to walk us through that. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I be worried about that? Okay. Yeah, something's not working. Just trying to figure out how to put the slides on the screen. All right.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Manuela, and thank you, City Commission, for having me today. As Manuela said, my name is Blake Newman. I'm going to make sure I speak into the mic. I'm going to rotate. Sorry about that in advance. As Manuela said, my name is Blake Newman. I am a community planner with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, helping over 60 wonderful Michigan communities implement the Redevelopment Ready Communities Toolkit across the state. So I cover Region 5. I also cover Regions 7 and 9. And it is a great honor to be able to work with the City of Mount Pleasant and witness all of the awesome things you guys are doing in your community. Throughout this presentation, it's gonna be pretty brief. I wanted to keep it high level. I do have a report in your guys' packet if you're interested in more information on anything specifically, and then obviously you can ask me questions at the end. But I did kind of want to touch on the overall toolkit, and then obviously the great work you guys have done to get the designation initially, and then the work you did over the last 5 years to maintain and then renew. So the Redevelopment Ready Communities Toolkit focuses on empowering communities to shape their future by building a foundation of planning, zoning, and economic development best practices that they can integrate into your community's everyday functions. So the goal is that many of the best practices, and I'm not going to go over every single one because there's a lot, but many of the best practices are based on the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, and then also best practices from private sector, public sector, and municipal employees all around the country that came together and said, here's the most important things that foster investment and development in communities. And the goal of the toolkit is to help communities integrate and implement those in their everyday functions, the great things you guys are already doing to make your community run. There are 6 principles to this. First and foremost, the work has to be community driven. So you have to have buy-in at the board level, at the commission level, at the staff level, and then also at the resident and community level. We want it to be predictable. This is both the toolkit, but also your processes. They need to be predictable. People need to know how to manage the things that they need to in order to invest in your community. And so that's the goal of the toolkit. We want it to be implementable. This is, again, the toolkit, but also the work that you're doing. So I always use this example when I talk about this one, in that master planning is extremely expensive. Often communities, we're seeing right now that communities are spending upwards of $100,000 on a master plan, and then it sits on a shelf and you don't touch it. And it's like, well, what was all that work for? What was all that money for? Everything that RRC asks you to do, we want it to be implementable. We want it to guide what you're gonna do moving forward, shape the work that you're doing moving forward in your day-to-day. So that's the important part there. Proactivity is really important, looking at where are the areas that we can improve, where are the areas, what are our strengths, what are our opportunities moving forward. And then equitable, this is, again, both the toolkit, but also the things you're doing in your community. We want your community members to feel like they have a say and that they're guiding some of this work. And then collaboration. So obviously within your staff, within the City Commission, your other boards, this is all a really big team effort to make everything run here. And we recognize that, and we want to foster that collaboration as much as possible. So Mount Pleasant's journey with RRC, it's almost been 10 years, which is really amazing. And also low, you know? But our Mount Pleasant initially engaged with the RRC toolkit in 2015, and you guys all worked extremely hard from 2015 to 2019 in order to reach that certified designation. You worked extremely diligently to implement the toolkit. You guys have been extremely innovative and been often a beacon of light for other people in your region and other people across the state as a great example of how to implement this toolkit. And so I just want to highlight that very briefly, but you guys have done awesome work, and that hard work from 2015 to 2019, and then also in your renewal period, it shines bright across the state for us. In March of 2019, you reached the certified designation officially with RRC, and then over the last 5 years, you've worked to maintain that designation. You've reaped some of the other benefits from reaching that designation, and in March of 2024, March of this year, you guys officially renewed your certified designation with us. So I attempted here to hopefully provide a better visual. In the first main body of text in the report I gave you, I list out all of the best practices that you had to work on over the last year to renew this designation. And I attempted to do kind of a visual for you guys to see. There are 6 best practice categories, and in those categories, there's many best practices. And so this bar at the bottom, every box with a green star is a best practice that you circled back to, that you looked at again, or that you had to adjust or maintain in some way over the last year to maintain this designation. And so I thought that this would be a decent visual representation for you all. The report is just a list of all the best practices, and that doesn't always give you, a visual. But as you can see, the best practices, I apologize for this glitch on best practice 1 there. But the best practices cover a variety of areas within your municipal governance and operations. So just to give you an idea of where the work has been focused over the last year. RRC benefits. So I have 2 slides kind of covering this, but the main benefits are at the end of the process or throughout the process, you're hopefully gaining a locally driven streamlined development review process. While being engaged with us and throughout your certification or certified designation period, you have ongoing technical assistance through me and the rest of my RRC team. This includes also access to technical assistance match funding, which you're currently using on the Mission Street Corridor Improvement Plan, which is super exciting. And that is something that you continue to have access to throughout your designation period. We hope that during this and throughout this and at the end of this, you're well positioned for community-driven development. And lastly, you have access to the redevelopment services team, which you guys have worked very closely with Nate Scramlin over the last 5 years to kind of shape some of the work that he does. And he also he also provides some funding in pre-development assistance through his team and his work. So this is also in the report I gave you, but I wanted to kind of pull out some of the this is a list of, again, the services we provide that you have access to by being a certified redevelopment ready community. And I wanted to just kind of pull out some of the themes. So we obviously have the priority site marketing and pre-development assistance through the redevelopment services team. You all have access to financial assistance tools. There's capacity building and training resources, community marketing and statewide exposure through a couple avenues, one of them being social media, but through the map on our website and some of the other Pure Michigan benefits of you guys being on our site. And then we also have a professional suite of services and specific consultant work that kind of is on a rolling basis depending on community's needs. That concludes my presentation. Again, I wanted to keep it brief, but I just wanted to say it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you all, the staff at the Mount Pleasant City staff, Manuela in particular. It's been amazing. You guys are a wonderful, wonderful community to work with. I thoroughly enjoy coming up here and visiting you all when I get the chance. And so, at this time, if you all have any questions, I'd love to take them and answer them as best I can.
Does the commission have any questions? You're doing a great job. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. And then do I need to? Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, this time we're going to move on to additions or deletions to the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions that the commission wishes to bring forward? And then I will ask for a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Seconded.
And there's a second. We have a motion to accept and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. At this time, we have public input on agenda items. You may come up to the podium. You'll be asked to state your name and address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. If you're joining us by Zoom, you can use the raised hand feature or *9 if you're joining Zoom by phone. Then you'll be asked to state your name and address and be given 5 minutes. Is there anyone on Zoom at this time? Okay. Not seeing anyone on Zoom, we will turn this over to Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony Kulik. I live at 409 South Fancher Street. I'm here to talk about the item on your work session tonight of the natural lawn, whatever you're going to end up calling it. I live next door to one of those. My neighbor has been doing this for 2 or 3 years now. I've never had any problem with it. Nothing in his area, however, is less than a foot tall. I've never had a problem seeing over it, seeing around it, whatnot. In the spring, when the natural plants are first starting to grow, they look a little ratty, unkept. Now they're getting to the point where they're starting to blossom and bloom. By later this summer, they'll have traffic stopping on Fancher Street, people stopping and looking at it, taking pictures. People alter their walking routes at night so they can walk by it and show the kids and things like that. So I think it's a good thing. You just have to be careful with it. When I was on the commission, I don't know, we hired a lady to work for the Parks and Recs Department. She was a full-time person. She was a horticulturalist for Michigan State University. That was her academic background. If she's still working for the city, that's one person you want to bring into this team to help decide what are good plants and what are weeds, and get that language fixed. And good luck with it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak at this time?
Bill Gersmaller, 1514 East Gaylord Street. Can you just refresh my memory what the purpose of the Mission Street redevelopment is?
The redevelopment of Mission Street?
And the plan for, are we getting rid of lanes of traffic or?
Oh, okay, I see the nature of your question. To answer your question, right now the plan for Mission Street is to undergo a survey of the community and to get community feedback on what the future of Mission Street could look like. So there currently is no adopted plan as to what that might look like until the public input has been reviewed.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak at this time? Okay, not seeing anyone, I'm going to close public comment and we'll move on to receipt of petitions and communications. Manager DeSense.
Receipt of petitions and communications this evening includes the minutes of the Planning Commission from May.
All right, we're going to move on to consent items. Are there any consent items that the commission would like removed from the consent item and moved into the agenda? Seeing none, Manager DeSense.
Consent items this evening includes the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held June 10, 2024. Consider contract with Fedwa Inc. for the 2024 1 million gallon elevated tank painting project and approve a contract with Dixon Engineering for project and construction engineering and oversight. Consider renewal of subrecipient agreement with Northern Initiatives and Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and consider approval of payrolls and warrants.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the consent items as presented?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. We do not have any public hearings tonight, so we're going to move on to new business. Manager DeSense.
So for new business this evening, we've got the Granger Waste Services franchise agreement and setting a public hearing for July 28, 2024 on proposed amendments to the solid waste ordinance. Staff is going to present a copy of a proposed negotiated agreement with Granger Waste Services. The agreement is a 5-year agreement offering residential trash and recycling collection services at a rate specified in the attached documents in your packet. This would replace the bag and tag system in the recycling collection operations. If the City Commission finds the changes to be favorable, then a change to the city's ordinance governing refuse and recycling will need to be made. The draft ordinance provided will require a public hearing. Following the public hearing, the ordinance can then be adopted and the City Commission can then authorize the agreement with Granger. Again, what the City Commission is being asked to consider this evening is if the agreement is something that we want to engage in, and then setting a public hearing for July 8, 2024. With that, I'll turn it over to Public Works Division Director Jason Moore, who's going to go over the particulars.
Good evening, Commissioners. I've got a real brief presentation to go over a couple of items that we've got in your packet tonight. The first thing is the draft agreement with Granger. Really, there's no changes from the proposal that they had put forward through the RFP process. It's a 5-year agreement with 3% increases per year. Billing and the customer services handled by Granger. There's options for 96-gallon, 65-gallon weekly refuse cart service, 96-gallon biweekly recycling, and then yard waste service as well, if residents so choose, as well as some other sort of miscellaneous items, large item and small item pickup, things like that. You've also got a revised ordinance in your packet. And mainly this eliminates the bag tag program. That's the majority of the revisions that are in there. The eligible properties remain generally the same as the bag tag program was. That's residential properties of 3 units or less. They would qualify for this agreement with Granger. There's elimination of the recycle fee on the water bill, and the separation of recyclables from refuse requirement stays in the ordinance. It's just that there's no longer a requirement for sorting beyond that point. Just to go over again with the transition plan with Granger, that'll be at the beginning of the year. Residents will need to sign up directly with Granger. And there's been some confusion out there about how folks are to sign up for this program. There is, of course, an online option, but if folks are not comfortable with that, then they're perfectly, Granger is willing to take those phone calls as well. That's part of the agreement, so that is not an issue. Granger is going to make a concerted effort to keep the routes the same. Refuse will be, again, picked up weekly, and recycling would be a bi-weekly pickup. And then we'd be expecting carts to be delivered before the end of the current contract. That's really all I had.
Okay. Are there any questions? Commissioner Chapman.
What's the 6-bag yard waste service?
So that's for yard waste through April to November. You'd be able to put your yard waste in the paper bags.
Like 6 a week or something?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Wingard.
Yeah, a big concern that I've heard a couple of times for residents is recycling and just rates of recycling, because the current program is designed to encourage people to utilize that because it's the flat rate versus paying by volume. I know a few weeks ago you and Aaron had a discussion about that with Granger on rates of recycling between like a similar sized city and like estimated rates of recycling currently. So wondering if you could just talk about that, just so we have it out in the public record a bit.
Yeah, so speaking with Granger, they had looked at a community, I believe, of similar size to ours, and they are getting a 53% adoption rate for the recycling, the folks that sign up for recycling as well as the refuse. And so that's, I don't remember the exact numbers of our current utilization of our program, but it's less than that. If you go by volume, we're at about 19% is what we've been running for the last 2 or 3 years now, so.
Gotcha. I think you said, or in the email that we'd received from City Manager DeSenz, we had our rates at about 30 to 40% was the estimated. Does that sound about right to you still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
So we'd be looking for you to set a public hearing for your next meeting to go over the ordinance and then hopefully look over, review the agreement and approve that at the same time. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Is there any further discussion or questions for clarification? All right, I'll entertain a motion to receive the agreement and set a public hearing.
I make a motion that the city commission set a public hearing for July 8th regarding changes to the solid waste ordinance.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Chapman and Commissioner Rollins. All right. All those in favor, say yes.
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 All those opposed, no. Motion carries. At this time, we're moving on to announcements and city-related business, or city-related issues and new business. Is there anyone on the commission that wishes to state something right now about anything that they know going on? I have to say that I'm excited watching Town Center continue to develop. I'm very excited that we are on schedule and we're going to be using that very, very shortly. So that's an awesome thing that's happening in the city. And if you haven't seen it yet, go down and look around.
I understand it's being well documented too.
Yes.
Yes, whoever takes the pictures of the aerial overview shot, that's an excellent look at the progress that's going on. I really appreciate those when they.
I think it's taken from the top of one of the buildings. Yeah.
Like Riverside apartment, like the apartment building.
This
It's
one over here.
it's a nice shot. You can just see the progress going.
Yes.
It's just nice to see.
It is. Is there anything else? All right, at this time, we will take public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. If you wish to come forward and talk about something on the agenda or something else that you'd like to bring forward, you may step to the microphone. You'll be asked to state your name and address, and you'll be given 5 minutes. If you're joining us by Zoom, you can use the raised hand feature or *9 if you're joining Zoom by phone. You'll be let into the meeting, asked to state your name and address, and be given 5 minutes. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Nobody on Zoom.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Peggy Brisbane. I live at 438 South Fancher Street. And,
And I have to get up to the microphone.
oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Peggy Brisbane, 438 South Fancher. I have read through the packet and I have looked at what looks like a possible recommendation for the gardening issues. And the way I read it, I would be very much in favor if it went forward the way it reads. Support for holding things, not creating a new ordinance, maybe fine tuning what exists. And I know a lot of work has gone into, a lot of discussion, which we appreciate that there has been opportunity to discuss. And I'm hoping that you will seriously consider the proposal as it's written in the packet.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time? All right, I will close the public comment section, and if there's no objections, I'd like to move on to the work session. Okay, we're going to move on to the work session.
So the city commission received public feedback regarding the proposed managed natural landscaping ordinance. City Commission has directed staff to provide for a work session to discuss the proposed ordinance and address concerns brought forward by the public. After talking about this, staff believes that an amendment to the existing noxious weed ordinance could achieve the intended goals of the City Commission in allowing for native plant species while preserving the ability of residents to keep their existing gardening plants. Wanted to get some feedback from the City Commission if they see things the same way, if there's some other conditions within the ordinance that we want to make a consideration for, and then we can come back with a new proposal for the City Commission to act upon.
I thought after the feedback that we'd received, I was starting to wonder if we could just carve out an exception versus building out a whole new ordinance. And when I got the packet for this week and saw that what staff was thinking, I had to kind of laugh at myself a little bit. I think it's a good idea. I think we can allow for a lot of the plants that like we were looking to do. It sounds like the only thing I wonder is like, I don't know. Should we like make mention of like natural landscaping as a goal or anything in the ordinance? Shaking the head over there from Paul, just kind of referencing the plants specifically, so that way we don't have to get into the whole back and forth.
I wouldn't use an ordinance to state what the overall goal is. There's other places for that, but not. I wouldn't advise putting it in an ordinance as the goal.
Okay.
Commissioner Chapman?
I think we've gotten into the weeds a lot about some of this. That was a good one. I think this just makes more sense than writing a whole new ordinance that we can't enforce. I mean, that would be very difficult to enforce. And so to change this to make, exceptions just makes way more sense to me.
So tell me, we're looking at possibly changing 96.05. That's our lawn maintenance.
Yes.
Okay. What are we looking to change in there?
I'm suggesting to leave it as is. There's, as I heard concerns from the public, concerns from the commission, really, when we talked about the 12 inches of flowers and whatnot, that there were some people had some issues with that. Currently, we don't have any limit to a flower. The height it can go. We have a limit to grasses. So you have cultivated vegetation. You have cultivated vegetation that that someone asked about if they can have I thought it was a cucumber plant or on the side of their house. Yep, you can have it. It's cultivated. The only thing you can't have is grass beyond 12 inches and noxious weeds. Okay. That's what you can't have. So as I looked at this and went to Michigan State University's webpage, I just need some direction. It's easier to put in what grasses we will allow than it is to put the ones in there or to put something in there that encompasses trying to manage it, plan it, and enforce it. So if that's the desire of the commission, Michigan has native trees, native vines, native ferns, native shrubs, native perennials, and native grasses. I just tell you that so that you know, and you tell me what direction you want. I'll list whatever grass you want in there. But I think listing what we allow is probably the safest way to go when it comes to grasses. Because grasses can't be beyond 12 inches.
How extensive was the list that you're referring to from Michigan State about native grasses?
Well, I'm glad that you asked, Commissioner Alsager, because there's southern Michigan grasses, there's central Michigan grasses, and there's northern Michigan grasses. So I don't know I know we're in central Michigan, but I don't want to discriminate. So you have to tell me what region or regions you want to hit.
But don't we think that code enforcement has enough to do other than trying to identify different grasses? I mean,
this
I'm just wondering if maybe what we do is we put a link in there to the Michigan State website that lists the obnoxious or noxious weeds.
I think that would simplify it, yeah.
Or as opposed to a link, just because links change over time, like websites get retooled and rebuilt, but referencing to like that document or to the work maintained as like this list as maintained by this entity. Didn't we craft this list more or less the last go around? Didn't we come up with like a fairly good,
Yeah, but it was an extensive list, though.
Yeah.
I think the only thing we did was basically strike goldenrod as a noxious weed because it has many different uses. So, but we left everything else intact as being noxious or something that we weren't supposed to have. But I think it's still we're making it way more complicated than it needs to be.
Well, in 96.05, the lawn maintenance ordinance, we do have a list of weeds.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not an exhaustive, I mean, there's more weeds that could be added in there. I'm just saying that we should probably state that this is based on Michigan State, I think it's State University is the one that puts it out, their extension program. Of what is considered a public nuisance when it comes to weeds. Otherwise, it says here that it is, or other plant that, in the opinion of the city manager, constitutes a public nuisance. So I think we'd like to strike that.
Yeah. I don't see
I'd like to put the opinion of the Paul Loria.
Yeah. Well, but then we can just say that.
But I think, considering that, for those residents that have had, extensive gardens, even on the city's right of way, that code enforcement has done a really good job in discerning what is overgrown and wild and what is cultivated. We don't want to make their jobs that much more difficult in trying to do plant identification on top of everything. I mean, I think that would be a bit on the overkill side.
I agree, Commissioner Rollins.
But if we don't have a list of some sort or a reference to a list, one of the things on here is ragweed and poison ivy and poison sumac.
I don't think anybody in their right minds would be planting that in the city's right of way.
Well, not if they don't know what it is, and it might grow, and they don't know what it is. So I think we do have to have some reference to a list of what these weeds would be. We don't have to list them all out, but we do have to have a reference.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Are we talking weeds, or are we talking a list of grasses that we're gonna allow?
We're talking weeds.
Okay, we're gonna.
We moved along. We're off that
Okay.
curve. We're someplace
All
else
right.
now.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think that listing grasses would be, I think it would be harder to identify grasses than it would be a weed.
Yeah, because you have the decorative grasses that grow into a puffball and send up lovely shoots of.
Yep. Yeah, pampas grass.
Yeah, pampas grass and stuff.
So I think that having a list or a reference to a list of the noxious weeds would be a better way to go.
Are you saying not to leave I guess we're looking at B2, not to leave it like that?
Yes, in the 96.5, yeah. Yeah, not to leave it with just those listing and then say the manager gets to decide what else is a public nuisance. I think we should say, these are this, and then refer to this list for other.
Or we could also, I mean, if we're working on that, we could just, in the opinion of the city manager, consulting that list. So it's just, that's how the city manager forms his opinion, by consulting that list. I don't know,
I think strike the city manager too.
Yeah, I don't think the city manager should be the one making that decision. Because we have a city manager right now that I would, for the most part, trust to make correct decisions, except on goldenrod. But I don't think that, we can't state that he's going to be here
Were you
forever.
anti-goldenrod in that conversation?
He's
Mayor
allergic.
Perschbacher understands that the city manager is allergic to goldenrod. So.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Just a comment that still on that page, B3, it says the city manager or designee will publish a notice in the newspaper on or around March 31st. Are you willing to do that?
We can continue publishing, absolutely. I know we do have general publishings for various other ordinances as well too, but this is one that we would continue to notify individuals to make sure that they're aware of the ordinance, correct?
Thank you.
I kind of want to circle back to Director Loria's question about region for grass. Were you looking for specifics on like the regions we should include, or the like grasses off of those specific lists? I guess kind of how specific were you, or just guidance from us?
Yeah, I'm just trying to give you guys the information so that when you say native, are you talking native to Central Michigan? Are you talking native to the state? If you're talking native to the state, then we can put in all the grasses in the ordinance. I just want you guys to have the information so you can't come back on me and say you didn't tell us that there was a northern species of grass that wasn't listed.
Gotcha. Manager?
I can ask a question to Director Loria. Director Loria, do you think if we were to work on the back end, and the general gist that I'm getting is a desire to allow those ornamental grasses and native grasses, but I also gather there's not an interest in allowing turf grass to grow beyond a certain length, and that folks would still need to keep turf grass lawns cut below 12 inches, but those ornamental grasses could grow beyond the 12 inches. Do you think, Director Loria, we would be able to craft language on the back end to state that intent?
I think we could state that these native Michigan grasses can grow beyond the 12 inches.
A follow-up question would be, do you think that we have the in-house capability to differentiate that between those kind of grasses and turf grasses on lawns?
It just adds another dynamic to say, I mean, I'm certain that a dispute could be settled if it ever came to that on what was growing in someone's yard, if there was dispute of that. But yeah, it's just another dynamic of the position. And when I don't look at, I don't look at it as easy. I don't subscribe to taking the easy way out of things. I subscribe to doing it right. And we would make sure that our law or our code enforcement has the tools, has the knowledge, the training to be able to identify that stuff. So.
Commissioner Chapman?
I think from the most of the people that we've heard from about this have been doing this for quite some time, I understand. And so I think the more complicated we continue to make it for the few issues that we've had, instead of trying to deal with those issues, I mean, I don't know, I can't imagine the amount of staff time, the amount of time that staff has put into developing this, and I don't think it's wise to continue to waste more time. So that's just my opinion.
So what is your thought on it?
I think the same thing is we add the things that maybe, I don't know necessarily about the different kinds of grasses, but every time we start, well, we'll just add this, and then we'll add this, and then we'll add this. Now we got this big thing that we're gonna have to sort out again, right? And so I don't know if what has been working is working, and maybe some of, whatever the biggest problem was that brought this to the table, we say, let's figure out what that very small section of problem were and deal with that, instead of saying, hey, we have all these people that have, because that's what we've continued to hear over, seems months now, is people coming up, hey, my neighbor has this, hey, my neighbor has this, these are wonderful, all these things are good. And we've spent hours going over this list of things I can't even pronounce. And then I pretend I'm an expert in it because I've read it, but I have no clue what anybody's talking about, right? Because I'm not a horticulturalist person. And so, I don't know, I think the more complicated we make it to solve such a small problem from a few people, it seems, the more competent it's just always going to be. And so I don't know how to fix it, but I think if 96.5 makes sense with some, just changing some of those things, I think that's what I would recommend doing, is just changing whatever the small things are that need to be changed.
It sounds like you're saying that we don't need to add in a section about grasses.
I'm not the expert, but I think, again, because then we kind of go back, well, we're going to add this grass, and then, well, what about this thing, and what about this thing? Now it just becomes a bigger thing, and we're back where we started. I just feel like it could get there quickly.
Commissioner Rowlands?
Can we get back to the original reason of why is this even on the table? It was before my time, so.
The original reason is because somebody was not mowing their lawn, was not maintaining their lawn. Correct me if I'm wrong. And they were saying it was because they were allowing the native plants to grow, but really what it was that they just weren't mowing their lawn because they weren't maintaining those plants. They weren't cultivating them and making them prosper.
Okay.
And there was complaints about it. And then there were people that said, well, we should be allowed to have natural native plants in our yard and and that's when we started moving into the managed native natural landscaping. It wasn't about flowers. It was never about flowers.
So this was to differentiate between someone being negligent in upkeeping their
space.
Their space.
Mm-hmm. And then we had some people say, well.
Okay.
In other words, we've really gotten into the weeds.
Yes, definitely.
And for me, simpler is just so much better.
Mm-hmm. But I think am I right about that, Doug? That's exactly how this started, yeah. Is that it was somebody complained and it was not well maintained. There were patches of dirt, there was, just a weed growing here. It wasn't maintained. If you're going to create a space that is going to be pollinator friendly, by using native plants, then it needs to be maintained so those plants thrive. Not just say, well, I have bad dirt, so I'm just gonna let whatever grows.
Okay.
I think I'd like to suggest that we accept the ordinance as it's written, except for maybe taking out under 26.05 B2 that the city manager has to get involved.
Yeah, because I think, code enforcement does a fabulous job in discerning what is unkempt and what is acceptable, even with those residences that have these beautiful gardens that are in cities, easement and whatnot. So I think we shouldn't be making their job any more difficult. But I do probably would suggest that if someone does have a question, so to speak, of I think all of this comes down to what each person is interpreting as far as the ordinance is.
I keep coming back to it's 96.05 B1.
Yeah.
So weed shall be defined as all vegetation other than agricultural crops, cultivated flowers, cultivated trees, or cultivated shrubs. And so as we're talking about, again, like grass, like native grasses and everything, that's where it comes into play of like where we would be making that change there. So yes, people wouldn't be able to just have an unkept lawn, but they would have to it would be guiding them to specific plantings. I think we could put in there agricultural crops, cultivated flowers, cultivated trees, or cultivated shrubs, or native plantings, and then that would be where we reference back to as defined by what are we using to define the native plantings. So that portion would be in there. So or cultivated shrubs or native plantings as defined by the MSU Extension Office, this list that they put out annually. But I don't think as written, it accomplishes, again, I don't think we can just change our mindset on it because, again, if I have, I don't know, it's a native grass or something and I change out my lawn from a turf lawn to that native grass and have it grow, I don't know, 3 feet off the ground, well, that is grass that is not protected by the ordinance, so it would be mowed at that point. That's my thought there. It's just I think we should again 96.05 B1. I think we should have some kind of reference to native plantings, or as Paul was asking, specifying like native grasses or anything of that nature, because I feel like that might be the sticking point there. Weeds and everything we've got under control, and most people avoid planting dangerous weeds like ragweed and I don't know, poison ivy. Thank you, sumac.
Who plants poison ivy on purpose?
Someone moving out. I don't know.
Okay.
So that's my thought there is cultivated trees or cultivated shrubs or native plantings. I don't know. Thoughts from other commissioners?
I think that is fine. The difference between some of the native grasses that we have in like pampas grass is not a native grass of Michigan, I don't believe. And that's the one that gets like this tall and it's got like feathery flowers on it.
Decorative or native grasses.
Decorative. Yeah, you have some, yeah.
You gotta cut that down right now.
Listen, if they want to cut it, come cut it. I'd be happy.
That stuff grows well. Yes. Do you guys have direction?
Clear as mud, right?
Okay, so we're looking at B1 of the 96.05, just adding native plantings as referenced by MSU Extension. And I think that my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, in B2, we're looking at taking the manager out and adding in and all other noxious weeds as listed in the cooperative extension, MSU cooperative extension.
I'm fine with that portion. The B2, I'm not as concerned, but I see the concerns of my fellow commissioners, so yeah.
Can I talk to you about the word plantings? What does plantings mean? Plants?
Plants.
So we're not doing the grasses? We had, commissioners, we have to be specific. I've heard commissioners talk about, we're making it complicated. We're not making it anything. We can make it clear as mud and then have problems down the road. The only way we can do this and have it be enforceable and acceptable is be specific. And that may take a very complicated ordinance, but it can't be summed up with planting. If we just say plantings, we need to define what plantings means. It means flowers, grasses, shrubs, trees, ferns, vines. So I need a little more direction than what I'm getting. Do you?
So you want a clarification on what type of grass?
I can tell you what native grasses are, what the native grasses are in Michigan, according to the state. And if you want me to list all those native grasses so that they can go beyond the 12 inches, no problem. It's a list of 15 grasses. I would try to pronounce it, but I can't. Big Blue Stream. Yeah, there's Little Blue Stream. I'm just, so I can provide that list. But then if you want shrubs and plants, they have a native plant list.
Okay. So we could state native plants and grasses according to MSU Cooperative Extension.
Well,
or the state of Michigan.
Yes.
I'm good with that. If like being able to create that list there, yes, I think defining it like that, I understand, like I do understand where you're coming from, because for like again, us, most gardeners out there, it's a really easy matter of like, this is how I've planned it, how I've researched it, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. My neighbors aren't going to have a problem. Code enforcement probably doesn't even know it's there most of the time. And so, but like again, if there is any issues that occur, like I understand what code I get what you're saying there. So if you can put together, that list there.
Yep.
I think that'd be all right. Again, because then also if we have to have a conversation with a resident about native plantings, we can refer back, well, this is the list you should be researching, like so you can build out your garden. Evidently, it's not going to have a serious impact on people who are currently planting, I think it was the daffodil house or something, the tulip house or something that was mentioned last meeting. Those probably would fall under cultivated flowers.
Yes, because they're not native to Michigan.
And even shrubs, I mean, it could be native to Michigan, but you could still cultivate it. So yeah, if you want to further define that list and build it out to Michigan grasses, I wouldn't know. Climate's changing, so if we want more southern more southern grasses here, I would ask someone probably from the extension office and send an email to them of, hey, what's okay for us to grow in our area as far as native plants go.
And I think I would add to that I don't know that we need a specific listing of grasses. We just need the idea that ornamental grasses or Michigan grasses are acceptable. just to add to your list.
Okay.
We have direction?
Yep, thank you.
All right. At this time, I will entertain a motion to enter into a closed session.
Let me get the motion out.
So moved.
We need a full motion.
I motion that we move into closed session pursuant to subsection 8C of the Open Meetings Act for strategy and negotiation sessions connected with the negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement.
I'll second that.
All right. Do we need a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Wingard,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman,
Yes.
Commissioner Bush is absent, Commissioner Eke is absent, Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Alsager,
Yes.
Mayor Kirschbacher.
Yes.
We have a quorum.
At this time, we will take a 10-minute recess so that we can clear the audience.
I know, that's what I meant to say.